Many Jews today feel the need for a Jewish renaissance. People are searching for a more vital and authentic mode of Jewish expression, and more than ever we need to shift not only physically, but spiritually out of exile mode. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
In response to the rabbi's video interview regarding the ongoing police investigation against former Chief Rabbi Rabbi Metzger, Machon Shilo received a comment from a viewer, which raised the question why it was necessary and why it was permissible to publish details of Rabbi Metzger's fraudulent activities. Is this not included in the prohibition against speaking Lashon HaRa?
This is in fact a valid question. Nevertheless, it is also misguided, because the fact of the matter is that, as with every other area of halakha, there are rules and there are exceptions to those rules, and there are certain principles and underlying concepts that we have to understand regarding Lashon HaRa, and that is the case here as well. It is well known that for the purpose of to'eleth, that is to say, in order to gain a certain positive achievement, to rectify something which is wrong or bad, evil, etc., it is permissible to speak Lashon HaRa, that is to say, to make known the evil deeds of a fellow Jew. The most obvious and simple example of this would be, as the Bar-Hayim writes in Hilchot Lashon HaRa, Klal Yod, in the case, for example, where one Jew embezzled funds, money, from another Jew, stole, embezzled, or what have you, did not pay for services received, for merchandise received, whatever the case may be, any such situation, it is permissible to make this known to other people for two reasons. A, so that if this person is known to be the kind of person who does these kinds of things, to warn others, to make them aware of the situation, so they themselves will not be caught up in his net and will not be taken in by him and will not be harmed by him. So that is in order to prevent nezek, danger, or damage or harm to others. That is one reason. The other reason, the other form of to'eleth, of benefit that may be gained from making this known, is that if others are aware of this fact, they may be able to rectify the situation. In other words, that it may be within their power to bring this person to justice, or to somehow force him to pay the person back, or to reimburse the funds, or to pay what he owes the other person, etc. These are just examples, but this is the general rule of thumb, that when there is a clear matter, a case of to'eleth, of possible benefit, where it is reasonable to assume that benefit will ensue from speaking this apparent Lashon HaRa, that is to say, to speak ill of another Jew, it is not Lashon HaRa, it is in fact Lashon Tovah. It is a very good and positive thing to do so in order to warn others and to make them aware of the facts so they will not be taken in. And this is in fact what we find in the Tosefta at the end of Masechet Yomah, also known more correctly as Masechet Kippurim, the end of Perek Daled, where it says, and this is also quoted in the Talmud Bavli in Masechet Yomah Daf Pei Waw Amud Bet, Mefarsamim et hanefim mipnei Hilul Hashem, which means that it is a miswa to announce and to make known, to publish the evil deeds of the Hanefim. Hanefim are people who we would also know by Chazal as Tzavu'im. In other words, a person who is tzavua in modern Hebrew as well is a hypocrite, or a person who is disingenuous. In other words, a person who shows himself, makes himself out to be righteous, upright, walking in the ways of the Torah, but in fact he conducts himself very differently. And Rashi explains on that Gemara in Masechet Yomah, Daf Pei Waw Amud Bet. Rashi says it is a miswah to make this known to the general public for two reasons. Rashi says, first of all, so that people will not learn from this person's actions and deeds. That is to say, if this person is known, apparently he is understood to be by many people to be a righteous person, they also assume, therefore, especially if he's famous, and particularly if he's known as a Tamid Chachamim, a Rav, or some kind of important leader of the Jewish people or the Jewish community, people assume that what he does is proper, the way he behaves is correct. And if they see him behave in a certain way, then they assume that this is therefore correct and proper, and they will possibly, very possibly, learn from his evil actions. Furthermore, says Rashi, and this is exactly how this idea is explained, this halacha of mefarsamim et hanefim mipnei hilul Hashem, mentioned in the Tosefta and in the Talmud Bavli, this is explained also in Midrash Tehillim, where it explains as follows, and this Rashi also quotes briefly or indirectly. The Midrash says that Hashem causes a person who is hypocritical, who makes himself out to be something that he is very far from being. In other words, he shows himself, he parades himself as if he is a very righteous and knowledgeable and pious person, but in fact, he, behind the scenes, in private, behind people's backs, he behaves very differently. It is a miswah to make this known, and in fact Hashem himself makes this known. The Tosefta actually quotes the pasuk from Yehezkel Perek Gimel, where it says as follows: the reason it is proper to publish the deeds of such people, of Hanefim, those who pretend to be righteous when they are not. The reason it is a miswah to do so is because the pasuk says in Yehezkel, in Perek Gimel, pasuk Kaf, Uveshuv tzadik mitzidko. In other words, when a righteous person turns away from his righteous way of life till this point, v'asa avel, and now turns to do evil. In other words, he changes his way, he changes his behavior, he now continues to show himself to be a tzaddik, to be righteous, but in fact he does avel, he does evil. The pasuk says, Hashem says, "V'natati michshol lefanav," I will place a stumbling block before him. In other words, says the Midrash, I will cause him to stumble and fall. In other words, says the Midrash, I will make it known. I will cause him to sin in such a way that he will be found out. It will become known that he is not righteous, that he is in fact evil, and that he is fooling people. And the reason that Hashem wants this to occur, and therefore the reason that it is a mitzvah to make known that such people are not in fact righteous, as they would like us to believe, is so that when things happen to this person, when he is punished by Hashem, when his downfall comes, people will not wonder why it is that this righteous and pious person, perhaps even very apparently a knowledgeable Tamid Chachamim, a Torah scholar, why it is that these things are happening to him. And in the case of someone like Rabbi Metzger, people may think, not without justification, because this is sometimes the case, that the police investigate people for no reason at all. And in Israel it's unfortunately not unknown that people are accused and sometimes investigated and sometimes put on trial and sometimes even found guilty in a court of law in Israel for doing things, supposedly doing things which they never in fact did. And this is for political reasons or machinations. These things are not unknown. The recent acquittal of present Foreign Minister of Israel, Avigdor Lieberman, is a case in point. He was under investigation for something like 13 years, and most of the charges were dropped, and the tiniest, most irrelevant detail that was left on the charge sheet was nevertheless brought to court, and he was acquitted because in fact there was no evidence. And it's quite clear that whatever the facts of the case, and I don't pretend to know the facts of the case, that he was being persecuted legally for political reasons. It's important that people know that in the case of Rabbi Metzger, this is not the case. It is what is said about him is true. There is much proof. I personally am aware of certain facts which I choose not to go into, which make it even more clear and certain in my eyes that this is all true and will be shown and proved to be true. And it is important that people know that there are such people out there. There are rabbis, in fact, unfortunately, out there. This is a terrible tragedy and a Hilul Hashem, but it is true, nevertheless. There are such people out there who pretend to be righteous, who dress the part of a great Torah scholar and parade themselves as if they are righteous and knowledgeable and God-fearing, but in fact they are something very different. Rabbi Nachman Breslev, in fact, in a number of places in his teachings, speaks of Rabbanim shel ha'erev rav. In other words, people who show themselves to be righteous and scholarly, but in fact they have a different agenda. And unfortunately, this case of Rabbi Metzger is an example of just such a person. It is unfortunate, but it is nevertheless necessary that people know that such people do not represent the Torah. Such people make a mockery of the Torah, cause a terrible Hilul Hashem, damage the standing of the Torah in the eyes of the Jewish people, in the eyes of the world. Just imagine for one moment if in some months or years from now the case is brought to trial, as it most certainly will be, and he is found guilty, as I'm sure he will be, and let's just imagine for a moment that he's even sent to jail. Can you imagine the headlines the next day? Former Chief Rabbi of Israel sent to jail for fraud, for embezzlement, etc. This is not at all an unlikely scenario. The Hilul Hashem is immense, immeasurable in fact. So for all these reasons, it is entirely correct and proper to make it known that this has nothing to do with the Torah. Such people do not represent the Torah, and the people who put him in that position in the first place, as we mentioned in an earlier interview, in this particular instance of Rav Metzger, was Rav Elyashiv, who unfortunately did not take all the factors into account, who did not see into the future, as it were. He was not ro'et hanolad. He did not see that which might come about, which is likely that it will come about as the result of placing such a person in such a position. There is no greater to'elet, there is no greater benefit for the Jewish people than to know that this is not how Rabbanim, and certainly Rabbanim Rashi'im, chief rabbis, important Torah personalities and leaders are to be chosen. The entire system by which rabbis in general in this country and rabbinical judges, dayanim, are chosen is riddled through with political machinations, underhand deals and dealings, and the entire situation is a mockery and inevitably leads to such cases as this unfortunate case of Rav Metzger. And therefore there is no greater to'elet than this, that the Jewish people know that this is not how the Torah world should be run, this is not how the right individuals are chosen for these positions, and the entire system must be revamped.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.